right, today in your packets, you are going to be working on some review that we did of things we did last week. I'm going to move you a little bit forward with some ideas I want you to start thinking about for tomorrow. So your title for today is Writing Decimals as Fractions. Our date today is 10/6/24. I'm going to start off by relating decimals to fractions again. We've done this a couple times now when we've talked about dollar bills. So we're first going to talk about the fact that our dollar bill, as we know it, here's my $1 bill. And you're copying this down in your notebook, stands for one whole. Okay, a dollar bill is the same thing as how many quarters? 4 quarters. Okay, this is the same thing. 4 quarters make up a dollar. It's still one whole. Okay. Now, if we break our quarters down, I'm going to put a little Q inside all of them. If we break our quarters down, okay, we're going to make this smaller. If I only have 2 quarters, how much money does that give me? Well, if I think about each quarter is worth 25, then I know that 2 quarters is worth 50 cents. And the fraction for that is 50 over 100. So 50 pennies out of 100 in a dollar. So this makes $1. And this is pennies. Okay? You can also call that 1/2 because 50 cents is half of a dollar. That's my dang little dog in the back barking in case you hear it. Okay? What if we have 1, 2, 3 quarters? 1, 2, 3 quarters. Okay, that means I have 25, 25, 25. So I have 3 quarters. That's the same as 75 cents. We can also call that 75 over 100 or 75 hundredths, same way we read a decimal. That means there's 75 pennies or 75 cents for every $1. We often see this written as a fraction that looks like this, 3/4. It's the same thing. 3/4 and 75 hundredths is the same thing, just like 50 hundredths and 1/2 is the same thing. Okay, so far we have $1 is the same as 4 quarters. 2 quarters is the same as 50 hundredths or 1/2. 3 quarters is the same as 75 hundredths or 75 pennies in $1 or 3/4. The last one I'm going to show you is that 1 quarter is 25 cents. The way we show that in a decimal is 25 or 25 over 100. So 25 hundredths and 25 hundredths. We can also say it's 25 pennies in $1. And our fraction for that is actually 1/4 or 1 quarter. We call it 1 quarter. We call this down here 3 quarters. And we call this 1/2. Okay, so we have 1 whole, 1/2, 3 quarters, 1 quarter. Okay, keep in mind 1 quarter has to do with 1 quarter. 3/4 has to do with 3/4. We don't call this 2/4. We actually just call this one 1/2. Okay? Perfect. So this is just to set the scene. Now I'm going to be at the bottom of my page. Remember, you can stop the video or go back to the video anytime you need it. We're just going to talk about one more thing. Today, in your pages, so this will be your packet notes for today, you're going to have things that look like this. They are going to give you, let's say, 10 okay, so there's 10 in here. This represents one whole. This one whole is broken down into 10 pieces. And they're going to show you things like, oh, 2 of these is colored in. And they're going to say, make a decimal and make the fraction. Well, we know that 2 rods equal tenths, or the rods equal tenths. So how many tenths do we have? We have 2 tenths, and 2 tenths looks like that. And then if we want to make it into a fraction, that looks like this, 2 tenths, okay? Remember, we have this in our notes from before. You might also see something that looks like this. Here's another square. And let's say they have 2 rods filled in. And then they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 squares filled in. So now we know they're talking about hundreds because they're breaking it down into little pieces. Each of these rods has 10. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I have 2 rods. I have 2 tenths. And then I have 5 hundredths. I'm not going to be able to fit that in, or can I? Oh, look at that. Okay, so I have 2 tenths, 2 tenths, and then I have 5 hundredths. The way I can write that as a fraction is 25 over 100. Okay, this is again something that we talked about last week. If we go back into our notes before this and we look at, this is my page 7, we already did this. We did this on page 4 in our packet, how we saw 3 tenths and we made 3 tenths, and how we saw 1/2 and we made 1/2. Okay, so we've already done this work. This should all be review for you. Same thing. So again, you're going to see things that look like this, and those will be tenths. And you might see rods and individual little squares filled in. The rods are 10, and these are 1. So these are tenths, and these are hundredths. Okay, let's do another one. Let's say the square is turned, right? And let's say they filled out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 filled in over here. Okay, so again, the rods each mean 10. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tenths. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hundredths. So I'm going to write that as a decimal as 5 tenths and 8 hundredths. And the way I write it as a fraction is 58 over 100, or 58 hundredths. Remember, here's our hundredths and here's our hundredths. Here's our hundredths and here's our hundredths. Here, we only had a tenth, so we're using a tenth, okay? The rest of the packet today deals with having the written form. So I'm going to flip this over. So this would be a little bit more on your packet today. They might write something like 3 and 26 hundredths. And they just want you to write the number. So I'm going to write 3, there's my decimal point, and 26 hundredths. And all I need to make sure is that that last number ends up on the hundredths. They might say something like 3 thousandths, okay? And I have to know right away, well, that's a decimal. It doesn't show me that there's any money over here. So I need a 0 in my money spot. I've got nothing in my tenths, nothing in my hundredths, and in my thousandths is a 3. That's it. 3 thousandths. They might also write something like 54 and 7 tenths. Okay, I've got 54. Here's my decimal point, and 7 tenths. It ends in the tenths, so I know I need to put it there. Here's where my 7 goes, okay? So you have, I think, 2 pages showing you pictures like this that we did earlier. And then you have 2 pages with word problems where they're going to give you the words and they're going to ask you to write the decimals, okay? You've got this. You've got a lot of information to do this with. We've been practicing this. You have that here. You have that here. Make sure you have your notes in front of you, while you do your work today. Make sure you rely on each other. Make sure that you check your answers. If you get done with all 4 pages, you should be working on the IXL. If you get done with the IXL math review, if you get done with math review, extra math is always an option. I hope you guys had a great day. I hope you earned all your recess time. I hope you clean up and do a good job, and I will see you tomorrow. Thanks.